I'm still trying to process the fact that I'm standing in my empty apartment, surrounded by the faint scent of fresh paint and the echoes of memories that are no longer mine, with a note on the kitchen counter that reads, "I'm sorry," in her handwriting, as I whisper to myself, she's really gone. My mind is reeling, trying to make sense of how it all fell apart, how the life we built together crumbled into dust, and I'm left with nothing but the haunting question of what I could have done differently. It's hard to believe that just a few months ago, our life was a routine of laughter, love, and adventure. We'd wake up every morning, have coffee together, and head to work, feeling like we were on top of the world. I'd come home from my job as a graphic designer, and she'd be in the kitchen, cooking up a storm. The aroma of her famous chicken parmesan filling the air, making my stomach growl with anticipation. We'd spend our evenings cuddled up on the couch, watching our favorite TV shows, or trying out new restaurants in the city. Our friends would often joke that we were the ultimate power couple, and we'd just smile, knowing that our love was the real deal. I thought we had it all. The perfect little life, the perfect little love, but I guess I was wrong. But then, one fateful evening, everything changed. We were at a dinner party at our friend's house, and I stumbled upon a conversation that made my blood run cold. I was refilling my drink in the kitchen when I overheard her talking to our friend, Alex, in hushed tones. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," she said, her voice laced with desperation. "I feel like I'm just going through the motions, you know?" Alex responded with a sympathetic ear. "I know, girl, you deserve so much better than him." My heart sank, and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual, as I walked back into the room. But my eyes locked onto hers, searching for answers. She quickly brushed it off, saying, "Nothing, just stressed about work." But I knew her too well. I knew that tone, that look, and I knew that something was terribly wrong. As I sat in my dimly lit apartment, surrounded by stacks of dusty law books and empty coffee cups, I stared at the court documents in front of me, my mind racing with the possibilities. The memory of that fateful day still lingered, like an open wound that refused to heal. My family's business, built from the ground up by my father, had been taken away from us by the ruthless and cunning actions of our former business partner, Marcus. He had manipulated the system, using his wealth and influence to silence us and get away with the theft of our livelihood. But I had spent years studying the law, searching for a way to reclaim what was rightfully ours, and I had finally found it. A tiny loophole, hidden deep within the complexities of the contract we had signed with Marcus. The loophole was a small clause, easily overlooked by the untrained eye, but it was enough to give me the upper hand. It stated that in the event of a dispute, the parties involved would have to enter into arbitration, and the arbitrator's decision would be binding. But what made this clause so powerful was that it also stated that the arbitration process would have to be conducted in accordance with the laws of the state where the contract was signed. And that's where Marcus had made his mistake. He had assumed that the contract would be governed by the laws of his home state, where he had connections and influence. But I had discovered that the contract had actually been signed in a different state, one with much stricter laws and regulations. With this newfound knowledge, I began to formulate a plan. I would file a lawsuit against Marcus, claiming that he had breached the contract and seeking damages for the loss of our business. But I wouldn't stop there. I would also request that the court appoints an arbitrator to oversee the dispute, and I would make sure that the arbitrator was someone who was familiar with the laws of the state where the contract was signed. I spent weeks researching and preparing, poring over documents and gathering evidence, and finally, the day arrived when I was ready to put my plan into action. I filed the lawsuit, and the court appointed an arbitrator, just as I had requested. The arbitrator was a no-nonsense woman, with a reputation for being fair but firm, and I knew that she would see through Marcus's tricks and deception. The arbitration process was a slow and painstaking one, with both sides presenting their arguments and evidence, but I was confident that I had the upper hand. Marcus, on the other hand, was getting increasingly agitated, his smug demeanor beginning to crack as he realized that he was in trouble. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus's behavior became more and more erratic. He would send me angry emails and messages, threatening to sue me for defamation and harassment, but I just ignored him, knowing that I was one step ahead. I could see the fear in his eyes, the desperation as he realized that he was losing control, and it only fueled my determination to see justice served. The arbitrator, meanwhile, was meticulous in her review of the evidence, asking tough questions and demanding clarification on even the smallest details. And then, finally, the day of the arbitration hearing arrived. I stood before the arbitrator, my heart pounding in my chest, as I presented my case. Marcus was there too, his face red with rage, but I just smiled, knowing that I had the upper hand. The arbitrator listened attentively, her expression unreadable, as I laid out the evidence and argued my case. When I finished, she turned to Marcus and asked him to respond, but he was stuttering and stumbling, unable to defend himself against the mountain of evidence I had presented him. The arbitrator deliberated for what felt like an eternity, and then, finally, she rescinded her decision. Marcus was found to be in breach of contract, and he was ordered to pay damages to me and my family. The amount was staggering, enough to not only restore our business to its former glory, but also to compensate us for the years of suffering and hardship we had endured. As I left the arbitration hearing, I felt a sense of satisfaction and vindication, knowing that justice had finally been served. But I also knew that this was only the beginning, that there was still more work to be done to ensure that Marcus paid for his crimes. And so, I began to make plans for the next phase of my revenge, a phase that would see Marcus brought to his knees, his reputation in tatters, and his empire crumbling around him. The slow burn of my revenge was just getting started, and I could hardly wait to see it all come to fruition. Part 3. The Fallout. The consequences of Mr. Johnson's actions were swift and merciless. The board of directors, appalled by the evidence presented against him, voted unanimously for his termination. The once feared CEO was escorted out of the building by security, his belongings packed into a small box. It was a symbolic end to an era of tyranny and corruption. The company, now free from his grasp, began to flourish. Morale skyrocketed as employees felt valued and respected once more. The new management team, handpicked by the board, worked tirelessly to restore the company's reputation and rebuild trust with clients and investors. Lawsuits led against Mr. Johnson personally and the company were settled, with the company emerging stronger and more resilient than ever. On a personal level, Mr. Johnson's life began to unravel. His wife, disgusted by his actions and the public humiliation, filed for divorce. He was left alone, his wealth and influence no longer able to shield him from the consequences of his deeds. The man who once thought himself above the law was now facing the very real possibility of criminal charges. As for me, I'm now in a senior leadership position, overseeing projects that genuinely make a difference in people's lives. The company has become a beacon of ethical business practices, and I'm proud to be a part of it. The experience taught me that standing up for what's right, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, is not only necessary but also incredibly rewarding. Looking back, the journey was tough, but the victory is sweet. Seeing the company thrive and knowing that I played a role in bringing about positive change is a feeling that's hard to match. It's a reminder that no matter how dark things may seem, the truth will always come to light, and justice will always prevail. Today, as I look out over the bustling office, filled with laughter and the sound of collaboration, I'm reminded of why I started this journey. It wasn't just about taking down a corrupt CEO, it was about creating a better workplace for everyone, and in that, I've succeeded. TLDR.
O również politykę międzynarodową, gdyż sojusznicy zachodni zyskali nowego, potężnego sojusznika w osobie Związku Radzieckiego. Bitwa pod Stalingradem była również ważnym wydarzeniem w kształtowaniu tożsamości narodowej Polski. Wielu polskich żołnierzy walczyło u boku Armii Czerwonej, a ich udział w bitwie był istotnym wkładem w zwycięstwo. Dziedzictwo bitwy pod Stalingradem przypomina nam, że historia wojen jest skomplikowana i wielowarstwowa, a skutki bitew i wojen są odczuwalne przez pokolenia. W końcu, bitwa pod Stalingradem nauczyła nas, że wojna jest zawsze klęską, niezależnie od wyniku. To wydarzenie pokazało nam, że nawet największe armie i najpotężniejsze państwa mogą upaść, a skutki wojny są zawsze tragiczne. Dlatego też możemy powiedzieć, że wojna jest jak ogień, który pali wszystko, co dobre i piękne, pozostawiając tylko popiół i żal.